Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. Yep, we're back to a normal, regular scheduled podcast now. We're back on schedule. That's Austin Hill. I'm Austin Wader. Excited to be back with you. Our annual NFL offseason episode here. If you missed anything from the NFL offseason, we are going to get you covered in this episode. I plan to put timestamps for every team in this once I'm done editing. So if you just want to go to your team, hear what our thoughts are on, that's in the description of this video. That'll help you find wherever you need to go. But before we dive into that, if you have not seen our last episode, we dove into March Madness leading up to the Final Four. And all March Madness is officially wrapped up now. On the women's side, UCLA came out on top, winning the women's national championship. Their first women's national championship at the NCAA level. They won one before women's sports were recognized and a part of the NCAA. So technically they're second, first in Division One, first in with the NCAA as they beat South Carolina 79-51. And Austin, I mean, we could get into the drama of what happened in the Final Four round with two coaches wanting to argue with each other, but we got to give credit where it's due, and that's to UCLA throttling South Carolina this past Sunday.
Yeah, this was, I was actually glad that I tuned in. The Final Four and the Women's National Championship were fun games to watch, exciting basketball. But like you said, UCLA really got in control in this national championship game and made some big plays. It was just unreal the way they constantly hit shots. And with their tempo, they put a lot of pressure on South Carolina. It's not that South Carolina necessarily can't play fast, but with that physicality, that aggressiveness that they're used to, they can slow games down, wear teams down, and then they come out and punch them in the mouth. And with UCLA being able to come down the court, get an easy layup, get a steal, get a score in transition, hit a quick three with a hand in your face. It just never allowed that defense to settle down and allowed them to get that edge on defense where they bring that kind of physical energy where they really kind of almost beat up on you, kind of what you talked about Gina was upset with in the UConn game. But they did a great job playing to their strengths and playing to South Carolina's weaknesses.
Yes, they really did. Credit to UCLA. Every single point scored by them in the national championship was by a senior. So a team that's built a lot of senior leadership. We'll say this. They got some work to do if they want to have a chance of repeating with the amount of seniors they are losing on this team, obviously, to graduation and to the WNBA. But yeah, congrats to UCLA for it. Big Ten wasn't done, though. The Michigan Wolverines won the men's national championship, and a great one as they defeated UConn 69-63 literally last night to win the national championship. Their first since 1989. Quite an accomplishment. Obviously, to get back, Dusty May in 2 years takes Michigan from 8-24 to a national championship. Obviously, your Illini fell short against UConn. Was heartbreaking, great game, and then Michigan throttled Arizona, and Wolverines came out on top. And it felt like they were the best team, especially after that Arizona game. And despite a poor shooting night, they were still able to take care of business and win a national championship.
Yeah, unfortunately for UConn, this game was lost in the rebounding department. Look, they were undersized in this matchup, but they just didn't give themselves many extra possessions on offensive rebounds and take away possessions with defensive rebounds. And that was really, to me, kind of the difference in this game. Because like you said, Michigan shot poorly in this game, and UConn didn't shoot great by their standards, but they hit threes in this game, which is what kept them in it. This game would be a blowout had UConn not been able to hit threes. I think the thing that really hurt this team is they made a lot of bad decisions down the stretch as well. When this game started to get close and it got into within this like 6-8 point range in like the last 5 minutes, they just started taking bad shots, tough shots, and then I know that it wouldn't, probably wouldn't have mattered in the grand scheme of things, but even thinking about that last offensive possession for UConn, Demery driving and taking the layup instead of either taking a quick three himself or getting it to somebody else. A two just does you no good in that situation. And again, we're talking about being inside of 13 seconds. It would have really needed a lot more than just a three to have gone down. But it just feels like this year more than ever in the March Madness, I feel like I've seen guys opt for layups in 3-point situations. And I know we always talk about it in the analytics, and
Hmm.
you can still get two here if it's
Right,
open,
right, yeah.
but we're too worried about getting two. And it's like guys don't want to take a tough three so bad that they'll take a bad two. And
Hmm.
if it's the choice between a bad three and a bad two, you've got to take the bad three and go for the more points. And I think that's just kind of something we're thinking it's these guys are being taught. It feels like that the right analytical play is to take the two if the three's
Hmm.
covered, but it's not if the two is also covered.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we've kind of seen a step back with some of those clutch moments because guys have opted for kind of the play that statistically, I guess, makes sense, but really it's a tougher shot. But it is college basketball, and that's what makes it so fun and interesting is that pros don't make this mistake. LeBron James doesn't have a last minute gaffe
Hmm.
at the end of a game. He knows what he needs to do to keep his team in the game, and either he makes it or he misses it. And so with college basketball, it takes that edge out. That's why you see the turnovers in the Elite Eight from Caden Boozer as he tries to make the pass when he could just hold on to the ball and win the game. Same situation that Furman Virginia game a few years ago. So yes, you see some decisions that kind of make head scratchers and maybe kind of, oh, well, what if they had done this? But at the same time, it is college basketball. It was still a treat. And Michigan was the better team. They were the best team in this tournament. And look, I talked about how playing in close games, maybe that was not going to be to their strong suit coming into this Final Four. And it didn't matter because they really just didn't play games that were that close. This game sure was a 6-point finish, but the game never really got inside 6 points once they kind of extended that deficit. And it never really felt like UConn had anything going because when they'd hit 2 or 3 shots in a row, or when they get 2 or 3 stops in a row, they'd come down and miss a few shots, or Michigan would come down and have an explosive dunk, or like we saw down the stretch in this game in the last 2 minutes, they'd start to get in, and Michigan would hit its first two three-pointers of the game just to push this game back out to 11, back out to 8. So it was unbelievable what Michigan was able to accomplish in this tournament. Maybe the greatest run we've ever seen.
I was about to say it's up there as one of the more dominant runs we've ever seen in recent memory. Credit to Dusty May, what he's done in 2 years at Michigan. Um, Almost some would say Signetti-esque, but I will say I'm going to give the edge to Signetti as far as tougher rebuild as far as it goes. I'm going to give the edge to him there. Yeah.
Also, I mean, just to add, Dusty May, I think maybe had a little more glam and glitz with the casual fan,
That's true.
like people had seen. I mean, he took FAU to the Final Four just before that. So, like, he had the appeal. Again, not to discredit what he's done, because what he's done has been
Obviously. Yeah.
incredible
Yeah.
in 2 years. But just to compare him to Signetti, yeah, I agree. Kind of Signetti-esque, but maybe had a little more appeal and respect from the fans right away. And like you said, definitely easier to build a basketball team in Michigan than a football team in Indiana.
Yeah, it really is. But shout out to the Big Ten, though. First team and first conference ever to win football, men's, women's national championships all in the same year, but with three different teams. The SEC did it
Yeah.
before, with Florida winning football and the men's national championship, and then Tennessee women's basketball winning the national championship. So shout out to the Big Ten. Good year for the Big Ten. But that's it for March Madness. Another great year in the books. We'll do it again next year with 70-16. We're not going to think about that. We're gonna dive into the NFL offseason now because I don't even want to think about that. So obviously the way this works, we're going to go through division by division, talking about some of the biggest moves made by teams, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I'll put links in the description to the specific teams. If you want to hear what our thoughts are for your teams, let us know. But let's start, Austin, in the AFC East with everyone's favorite, and by everyone I mean definitely yours. That's the Buffalo Bills. Now, as far as their offseason, not gigantic moves out, not a lot of big moves. They did make two really decently sized moves. Number one, that was signing edge Bradley Chubb to a 3-year deal, which is replacing Joey Bosa, kind of just replacing him. Much better of an upgrade there. And then one that near and dear, DJ Moore getting acquired in a trade with the Bears. Buffalo got a fifth round pick to go along with it, and the Bears got a 2026 second round pick to go with it as well. So I guess my question to you with this stuff is, do you think DJ Moore helps this offense in Buffalo be even more successful this year? Now that, because we talked a lot last year about a depleted wide receiver room, do you think this is going to help them out this next year?
Yeah, I mean, we saw kind of still what Josh Allen is capable of over the last couple of years without like the big, exciting names. I know Amari Cooper did come in the end of 2024 or whatever, um, but still for Josh Allen, it's been getting it done and working it around. But you just can't doubt what DJ Moore can do in a game. And look at him in crunch time for the Chicago Bears this year. Two huge plays against Green Bay. One of them a walk-off in overtime. One of them a beautiful catch on fourth and whatever that extended that game and allowed the Bears to drive and win. So he's got a clutch gene. He's that capable that he's going to get open. He's going to make those tough catches. So he's going to be a guy you can rely on at the end of the game. So when Josh Allen scrambling around, running around, much like Caleb Williams did a lot this year, trying to make those plays at the end of the game, he knows that when he fires the ball, he's got somebody that's going to hold on to that football and make the big plays. That's what DJ Moore really does. So what I really love about this, I think this is a good get for the Buffalo Bills. I think we'll save, thoughts on the Chicago side of it for when we actually talk about the Bears.
Right.
But for Buffalo, I think this is a really good move that keeps you going and I think puts you closer to Super Bowl contention than you've been, and you've been really close the last couple of years. I think this is a good move. Like you said with Bradley Chubb, I love that move as well. I think continuing to try and find, they haven't really found the piece that works just yet. And Joey Bosa, they've tried Von Miller, but going to Bradley Chubb, it's the effort to me that I think is important. It's going out and getting guys that are good, talented, game-changing edge rushers, and continuing to build this defense. But what I like, I know, we don't want to hit every single move, but they really committed to the secondary, which has been kind of an area. D. Alford, a 3-year deal. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who had an incredible second half once he got into Chicago. Geno Stone, who's been a stud the last few years. So getting guys and committing to this defense and this secondary, which in the AFC Championship a couple of years ago that you and I saw would have really helped. Was that, an interception, pass interference, whatever that we saw at the end of the game? Yeah, but had you had some of these guys out there, that maybe doesn't happen for them. So I like the commitment to the secondary, knowing that's their weakest link and continuing to go out and build. That's what Buffalo's done so well, even though I hate some of the moves they've made this offseason with coaching, and I kind of hate their GM and ownership right now because of the stupid coach firing. Yep. I think they have constantly, year in and year out, made the right moves to address the correct weaknesses. They're always going after the weaknesses and trying to stay relevant that way. So I like the moves they've made. Like you said, not a ton, but I think the moves they have made are good team improving moves.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that Bradley Chubb. I think they tried, Landon Jackson, they drafted him from Arkansas. He's dealt with an injury last year, so they didn't have as much depth. So it was a lot more pressure on Bosa. You hope along with Chubb, Landon Jackson, some of these other guys on the line can help there. And the other thing, what's factoring with DJ Moore, Joe Brady had him in Carolina whenever he was the OC there for one season. 1,000-yard receiver under him. He's familiar with his game. I'm sure he can put Josh in the right positions. So I agree. I think those are some great moves. And I agree with the secondary stuff. I mean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, whenever you're continuously being on contenders and helping teams, you're a valuable piece. So I agree that's going to help the Bills secondary out a lot there. Next up is a team that has made quite a lot of moves and quite a lot of change. That's the Miami Dolphins coming up next year. Wow. Hopefully you don't plan to recognize this Miami team because a lot of pieces are gone. Tua no longer around. Tyreek Hill gone. Jalen Waddle gone. Minkah Fitzpatrick for the second time traded away from Miami. And obviously Bradley Chubb. But some of the moves they did make, it was rumored that he was going to get paid this offseason, and it was proven here. Malik Willis getting a 3-year, $67.5 million deal with $45 million guaranteed. They brought in Tutu Atwell in. They brought David Ojabo, Josh Uche. They're trying to bring in pieces. that are kind of like 1 year stopgaps. Because let's face it, Jeff Hafley, it's a new era for the Miami Dolphins here. And I think we all got to wonder, is Malik Willis the potential franchise QB for this guy? We thought it maybe when he got drafted, had to sit for a few years, but he has a chance to prove it now.
I like this Malik Willis signing because it does basically covers you for this upcoming season. We've talked about it. You're not picking at the top, and really you're not picking number one. You're probably not going quarterback in this first round. You're probably not going to get a guy that's going to start the season. And then Quinn Ewers, look, did he have some flashes last year? Yeah, but did he also have some really big stinkers last year? Yeah, he did. So getting a guy like Malik Willis, who kind of gives you this kind of, you think about guys like Sam Darnold
Yeah.
kind of approach, or he's a guy that kind of drafted, given up on way too quickly in Tennessee, though I think Cam Ward's going to be a good piece for him. We'll see how it works out. But then he gets to Green Bay, doesn't lose any games as the starter in his 2 years there, I think. He won quite a bit, played really well, showed flashes, and now it's a chance to say, hey, over a full season sample size, can you play this well? Look, we don't expect you to go undefeated, but can you play well? If you can play well, then hey, 3 years, $67.5 million, $45 million guaranteed. No sweat off our back. We'll see you with an extension at the end of that deal to be our real franchise guy. And if not, you sign him to a measly, 3-year deal. You draft a rookie quarterback in the next 2 years. No harm, no foul. I think it's a great move. We've seen what the right system, the right situation for quarterbacks has done. And with Malik Willis, that's kind of different from Sam Darnold. I guess different from Sam Darnold when he went into his Minnesota days,
Right.
was that Malik Willis has some positives coming with them out of Green Bay, kind of similar to Sam Darnold when he came out of Minnesota and how well they had played.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's got these positives with him that say, hey, maybe he can do this as the real deal guy. And so that's what I think I'm excited about, is that he's getting a chance. No, is it not the best team, but he's getting an opportunity. And if he's the right guy, it won't matter who's around him. And so I think this is the right move for them at the quarterback position with the draft. And I like to see guys like Josh Uche is going to be fun to see for a year. David Ojabo, I'd like to see him get a big opportunity here in Miami. We talked about the unfortunate injury at his pro day when it looked like he was going to be a surefire first-round pick, and then kind of just stashed in the Ravens' rotation of really solid defensive linemen. And so now this is an opportunity for him to maybe earn his own.
Yeah, it really is. Another one I will say, one name I haven't heard in a bit, Ronnie Harrison, I think an underrated safety. Yeah. He's been around for a little bit of time. Him, Marco Wilson. I think there's a lot. And let's also factor in, RC, I talked to all those pieces that are gone. Devon Achane is still there, although I know he's on the last year of his deal, so that could be something to monitor. As I said, the NFL draft is 16 days away, so maybe that's something to monitor as we get closer to the NFL draft. They could maybe look to move him. But if not, I think you need to keep him around. Bring him to the Bears. Yeah, we'll see. But I think you want to keep him around to give Malik Willis something so he doesn't have to rely on doing everything himself. Sam Darnold was successful in Seattle. You want to know what helped? Having Kenneth Walker. I think that helped out quite a lot. Just want to throw that out there. But now let's move to the team that represented the AFC in the Super Bowl this year. That's the New England Patriots. Made some quality moves. Obviously, the big thing at start, they released Stephon Diggs, and you wonder, he was a great leader for the team. How are they going to replace him? Well, they start by adding pieces for Drake May. Number one, they sign Elijah Vera Tucker away from the Jets to protect him, because, again, if you watched that Super Bowl, it was not a great time for Drake May.
If you watched the playoffs.
Yeah,
the playoffs, he got sacked a lot.
It was the playoffs. I was trying to be nice, but you're absolutely right. It was the playoffs. But they replaced Stephon Diggs with Romeo Doubs on a 4-year, $70 million deal. Guy's kind of been underrated during his time in Green Bay. At least to me it is. Obviously, there's been some movements. They traded Garrett Bradbury away to Chicago. Obviously, we're going to add more to that whenever we talk about the Bears. And then they moved Jared Wilson to center. So they're moving pieces around to ultimately help Drake May because, I mean, we saw when he was at his best this past year, he was an MVP candidate. And I think these are some good moves made by the Patriots here.
Yeah, I agree with Elijah Vera Tucker. Look, this is a good, talented interior guard. One of the few bright spots I'd say in for the Jets organization over the last
Yeah.
few years. To pull him away, yeah, huge upgrade for a quarterback who's been sacked more than any other quarterback in playoff history, I think,
I
last
believe
year.
so. I believe that's the
Um,
stat. I believe.
then you talk about Romeo Doubs coming in, like you said, underrated. I think the thing that I like compared to Stephon Diggs is there's no question marks about whether this guy's going to be able to play next year. Hate to
Mhm.
bring it up, but
I mean, it's a fair point. Yeah.
we do not know if Stephon Diggs is going to be able to play football next year, no matter where he ends up. So I think getting a guy you're more committed to, a younger guy, is going to be helpful. Look, go out and get a guy. Kevin Byard led the NFL in
Yep.
interceptions this year. Part of that great Bears secondary. He's surely capable. A name I like to see here that a guy I really like who I feel like we don't get to talk about very much. KJ Britt, fun
Yes.
linebacker to
Yeah.
add to this court. These guys and Draymond Jones on the edge. So improving the defensive line, improving the offensive line, improving the secondary, getting Drake May more weapons. Again, this is a team that's gearing up, ready to go. Look, hey, they're not saying, hey, it's our quarterback's second year. Let's take our foot off the gas and say, let's see what happens. They're acting like Drake May's going to retire. Like they have to get to a Super Bowl. And I like that commitment, that urgency that they don't expect to go anywhere but up because there is still room to grow. It's a Super Bowl trophy, and I like the commitment to it in New England.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Draymond Jones. I think is a very underrated one. Was very solid for the Ravens this past year. You want to know why? Because the Ravens were so injured, he got a lot more opportunities to step up and get some big plays for the Ravens. So I think ultimately, I'm with you. I think this really is going to help the Patriots, at least on the line, and as well as protecting Drake May and Romeo Dobbs could be fun. Wouldn't be shocked if the Patriots look to add more to the receiving core in the NFL draft. We'll talk more about that closer to draft time. And Austin, we finally got to talk about him. You brought him up with the Elijah Vera Tucker. Let's talk about the New York Jets. You can only go up from last year, I think is the main takeaway here. Obviously, one of the big things, they acquired Geno Smith from the Raiders. He's back as a Jet. Didn't have some great memories as a Jet, but hopefully this will be a different stop. They kept Breece Hall around, even though I don't know if he was really excited about being around. At least that's just me. They did trade for Tavondre Sweat in that deal with the Titans involving Jermaine Johnson. They bring in Demario Davis. They bring him back to the Jets. Mykal Walker. They acquire Minkah Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins. I mean, these are moves that I think can help the team improve some this year. But the ultimate question mark is Geno Smith there. And obviously losing some pieces on the offensive line like Elijah Vera Tucker.
Yeah, I hope Geno can come out and play. That would be such a cool moment. I don't know if he's still got that many cool. He's already got such a cool story. I don't know if he has another cool moment like that in his career, but awesome full circle. He comes all the way back to the Jets and plays awesome. That's what I'm hoping for. Hey, again, kind of in a similar situation to what we talked about with Miami. I think this is an appropriate way to handle the kind of quarterbackless class here, where we thought it was going to be all this talent, and then all these guys say, and again, mature quarterbacks here to say, I need another year in college football. To take another year, I hats off to that. But because of that, you leave a lot of these NFL teams who are hoping to get,
Right.
oh, we're going to have Dante Moore and Arch Manning and Fernando Mendoza comes out of nowhere. And Diego Pavia looked like he was going to be somebody at the beginning of the season. And then all that kind of
Yeah.
popped around and some measurements came out officially. And so it kind of changed the way people look at things as they're going to draft these teams. Not that these guys still aren't going to get an opportunity, but they're certainly not going to be first round picks. But another thing I like about this team is, again, we talked about kind of the commitment to the defense. The first team to never catch an interception. I like that they say, let's fix that right now. Deshaun Wright, you caught a lot of interceptions last year. Let's get you. Minkah Fitzpatrick, you've caught a lot of interceptions. Let's get you. Demario Davis, you're a pass coverage specialist. You catch interceptions all the time. Let's bring you back to New Jersey, or bring you back, back to New Jersey. where you started your career with the Jets.
Yeah.
And also shout out Red Wolves. But
Yeah. Yeah.
they make some adjustments here in the secondary that say, hey, let's not be the laughing stock of the NFL next year. And so I like that commitment to the defensive side of the ball, to that secondary to improve. But yeah, this team still needs a lot of work. Are they going to be the best team in football? Or are they going to be picking outside of the top 10? Probably not. But they were so low last year that I think they can start to trend in the right direction. I think they're going to look better than they did last year. I stand by that statement. I think they're going to look a lot better than they did last year.
You can only go up. You can only go up from last year. And obviously, just remember they have multiple first round draft picks. So they could look to add some pieces. I hear there's a great Ohio State linebacker that could be great to learn from Demario Davis. I feel like that could be a great situation. One other one I want to talk about, Joseph Osei, or Osei, I forget how you pronounce the name officially, but he signed as well to help with the pass rushing as well. And maybe you go get someone like a Reuben Bain or David Bailey to kind of help that pass rushing more. Very intriguing to see what they do in the draft, but surely this is some stuff you look at and go, look, we can only go up from what last year was. But let's head over to the AFC North now, and let's start with the team that made the biggest move and then rescinded the biggest move of the offseason. That's the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, let's address it like it is. The Max Crosby drama when they traded for him, and then they backed out of the deal, and then the very next day they signed Trey Hendrickson, and it seems kind of super fishy. But let's say it like it is. It might have been the best move needed for them because they lost so much in free agency, especially when we talk about Tyler Lindenbaum, losing him in free agency to go along with several other pieces. They get the first round picks back. They acquire Trey Hendrickson. It's going to be tough for Jesse Minter to replace John Harbaugh, obviously, as the legend that Harbaugh has been for the Ravens, what he's been for that franchise. But the players seem to be more bought in. Like I talked about, that Trey Hendrickson came in. They signed John Simpson. Chidobe Awuzie's back. And Danny Pinter, they brought him in to kind of replace Lindenbaum. But that's my only worry, really, with the Ravens. I think Minter will do great things with that defense. But losing Linderbaum, I think, is going to hurt this team more than people think.
Look, this run game is going to get punched in the mouth. Maybe they can fix it, but you lose Likely. You lose. Who's the other tight end that they lost that I can't think of right off the top of my head? Charlie Kolar.
Yes.
They lost Charlie Kolar, who's been huge in their run game. Like you said, they lose Tyler Linderbaum. I'm a little bit worried about what the Ravens might look like next year. I think they've got great talent, but they lost in a lot of areas. And look, I think the Hendrickson deal is kind of to make up for Max Crosby.
Mm-hmm.
They make this Crosby deal, they give up all these picks, and then they lose all these guys immediately after all these guys signed somewhere else. And I think what they realized was, and unfortunately, there's I guess nothing to stop teams from being able to do this. What they realized is, we're not going to be able to fix all these holes, losing all these draft picks, and having to pay this salary to Max Crosby. Mm-hmm. So they back out of the deal, and then they say, well, we still need help at the edge, even though I don't think that's their biggest need. They say, we still need help on the edge. We still want to get a game changer. And then they offer this big deal to Trey Hendrickson and get Trey Hendrickson. I just never thought that the Max Crosby deal was the right deal for them. Right. Sure, maybe they could use some help off the edge, and they go and get it in Trey Hendrickson. But to sacrifice as much as they were going to give up for Max Crosby, I think it would have killed this team with everything that's happened this offseason. So, yeah, I'm sketched out by the way they're just able to be like, actually, we don't want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think the NFL should really work hard to improve what goes into trades and how you're able to back out of a trade or agree to a trade. I think from now on, you shouldn't be able to agree to a trade unless you're either waiving the physical or you've seen the physical and you're okay with it.
Right.
This should never happen again because it's absolutely fishy, and it's absolutely because they realized how much they were going to lose. They were not going to be able to make up by burning everything they were giving up for Max Crosby. It's the right decision for the franchise, but it kind of stinks because it's a fishy deal all around. I think they've got a lot of room to improve. I don't think they'll be bad next year. I just wonder how this team's going to look with all these holes they've got to fill.
Yeah, they do. Again, it'll be interesting to see what they do in the first round of the NFL draft. Will they go O-line to kind of fix that? Do they go get tight end depth, like you talked about losing some of those guys? Be one interesting one to keep an eye on. And we talked about Trey Hendrickson. Let's talk about the team that he's finally free from, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals up next. Um, Interesting all season for the Bengals. You know, obviously they're running it back with the exact same staff. Already a red flag there. Just going to point that out. Uh,
Josh Johnson, though.
yeah, I was about to say the quarterback room is interesting. You got Joe Burrow, Josh Johnson, and Joe Flacco in there. That's an all-time QB room. I don't care what anyone says. They bring in Orlando. They bring Orlando Brown Jr. on a 2-year deal. Dalton Reisner. They re-sign him. They get Boye Mafe, Jonathan Allen on the defensive line. Brian Cook, Jalen Davis are re-signed in that secondary. They got Kyle Duggar for the secondary as well. Look, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm honestly surprised there isn't more defense because the more help this defense can get, the better it's going to be for this franchise.
Yeah, look, they go out and they get a guy like Boye Mafe. I think that could help maybe kind of mend the wound of Trey Hendrickson. He's not going to be exactly Trey Hendrickson, but he's a quality enough replacement. He's not going to get you. I'll say this and then I'll come out and do it. He's probably not going to get you double-digit sacks next year, but he's going to be a good piece. And you go out and get a guy like Jonathan Allen, who's a disruptor. Maybe get him in the rhythm. I like that signing. And then Brian Cook, a decent safety to a 3-year deal. And we talk about secondary with this team every flipping year. I feel like how desperately they need to fix this secondary. But they have young pieces.
Mm-hmm.
They go out and get a guy like Brian Cook. I think that's always a trend in the right direction. The thing about the difference to me between this team and Baltimore is while they're kind of running it back with a similar cast, they're not losing as much.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys on their team it's not necessarily think Joe Burrow is better than Lamar Jackson, but I think Joe Burrow with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase is better than Lamar Jackson with Derrick Henry.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I just think that unit's better. I feel more confidence in that. So I think if everybody can stay healthy in Cincinnati, which we've said for the last half decade, if everybody can stay healthy in Cincinnati, this team's a problem. I think they've made the right moves. I wonder what they'll do on draft, if they might go tight end, if they might help out the secondary. But I think whatever they do in the first round is nothing but an upgrade for them.
I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if I'd like it, speaking as a fan of a team in that division. If they don't find a way to get Caleb Downs, I think this is a miss in the draft. To me, if you do not walk out of this draft with Caleb Downs, I feel like it's a loss of something that would help your defense so much. Let's think about in division. Kyle Hamilton, anybody? Look at the impact he had on the Ravens defense. You get a safety that fits all the mold and can lead this team. I mean, I think he could help them improve tremendously in year one. I'm not saying it would help them be a top 10 defense, but go from the worst in the NFL to maybe close to middle of the pack, at least to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it could be crazy having Caleb Downs on this team. You know, as a Bears fan, I was hoping he'd slide down. You know, we've taken a couple hits in the secondary. We have made some good signings, which we'll talk about in a minute. I was hoping Caleb Downs would slide a little bit. Then I remember that the Bears were good this year, and they had like a pretty decently low pick. And I was like, no way Caleb Downs makes it that far down. If he does, boy, oh boy, don't miss. Don't miss, Ryan.
Hey, Dylan, your man, Dylan Thiemann could be there for
He
Oregon.
could be.
He could be there.
I actually hope that that's what happens, but I fear we might not do it. But that's where we should go. You're absolutely right. That's what should happen.
That's what I'd like to see. It's a win for everyone. I think it'd be the most exciting thing for a pick to go along with that since the Justin Fields one. Still one of my all-time favorites. Your reaction to the Justin Fields draft pick.
That was a real live reaction too. I had so many people at my house during that one draft, which was crazy. And I got up and ran completely out of the room to go with it.
Yeah, good times, good times. Let's move on to a team that's not having good times, though. That's the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, Todd Monken's taken over an interesting situation there. And I would say there's some positive things to build on. But then you have the comments from Jimmy Haslam talking about Deshaun Watson has a great chance to be the Browns starting quarterback. And I'm like, are we really sure that's the best option? But I mean, you signed Tylan Wallace, you acquired Titus Howard, you re signed Tevin Jenkins, bring in Zion Johnson, Elton Jenkins on the offensive line. Julian Okora, you re sign him. I mean, there's I really don't know what to say for this franchise. It's
I love the work they've done on the offensive line.
yeah, I'll give
think
them that. I'll give them that.
I think that's something to be excited about, but you're right. With everything else, we'll see where it goes. They've got decent pieces, they've got decent talent, they've got a decent offensive line, but it's all about what Monken's going to be able to do and get out of his guys. And I think we might as well just wait until then to find out what's going to happen with this team.
Yeah, I don't want to say Todd Monken could be a one and done kind of coach, but given the situation he's walking into, it might be unfortunate how that might happen for him. I hope I'm wrong and he can at least get another in multiple years because then that would, um, I think, be positive for them. So I'm going to keep an eye on. Obviously, we'll see what they do in the NFL draft. Two picks. They have the Jacksonville pick, obviously, from the deal last year. But let's move to the last team in the AFC North, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I'm not going to lie, the big question mark is with that quarterback position. No, I don't want to talk about it because I feel like I'm in the exact same cycle as last offseason. Let's talk about stuff the Steelers have actually done that I love. Number one, getting Rico Dowdle away from the Panthers makes me feel a lot better about losing Kenneth Gainwell, who was awesome for us last year. Number two, acquiring Michael Pittman from the Colts, I think is a very underrated move. Jamel Dean from Tampa Bay, bringing him in. Asante Samuel, Jaquan Brisker, someone you know well from the Bears. Um, I will say losing Isaac Samalu on the offensive line, I think hurts. As bad as our O line was, that was probably our best offensive lineman that was at his peak. So besides quarterback, I feel like it's a pretty decent offseason for the Steelers. Leaving some questions on the offensive line, though.
Yeah, offensive line will be something to look at for what this team's going to do well. But and quarterback obviously, but I like to move to get Michael Pittman. I think having a more legitimate wide receiver too is going to not only create more success for the quarterback, but more success for DK Metcalf, who had a pretty good season last year.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, all things considered. But then the secondary was kind of all right last year. Safety, they really needed some help at. So what did they do? They went out and got Darnell Savage and Jaquan Brisker, two pretty talented safeties from the NFC North who play a gritty, physical style of football that I think fits their style well as getting Jameel Dean, who's
Mm-hmm.
a fun watch. So a bunch of commitments, bringing back Asante Samuel Jr. I loved that signing in the middle of the season last year, and to bring him back as well. So I think they made a good commitment to the defensive side of the football, where really they do well anyway. Uh, I like that aspect because, hey, maybe your quarterback stinks next year. He's a 45-year-old man who needs to retire again,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and he can't score very many points. But next year, teams might actually not score any points against this defense.
Yeah, we shall see, especially with Terrell Austin being gone as a defensive coordinator. That's a win for everyone there.
Yeah.
Um, we will see what they do. Let's move on though. I don't want to linger on them too long, especially on that certain quarterback thing. If anything, I want to see Will Howard as the starter next year, but that's just me. Let's move to the AFC South now. Houston Texans up, and there were some questions entering the offseason about what can they do. They had this elite defense. Can the offense find the pieces? Well, goodbye, Joe Mixon. Hello, David Montgomery. They acquire him from the Lions. He is going to, I think, be key to the ground game for them. They brought back some offensive line pieces. Evan Brown, Trent Brown re-signed. Ed Ingram re-signed. They brought in Wyatt Teller, Braden Smith. They re-signed Daniil Hunter. And I think one of the underrated moves of the season, Reed Blankenship, adding him to that safety position for what was already a talented defense, I think can help them out a lot. But look, the big questions come on that offense and with CJ Stroud. But these are some decent moves, I think, for the Texans.
Yeah, look, they did what they really have been needing to do for a while. Um, and they went out and got some offensive line help. Braden Smith, Evan Brown, Wyatt Teller. Wyatt Teller's probably the best of the bunch. They're not the biggest names that are going to jump out at you, but these are talented offensive linemen who are going to make a big improvement. Adding Reed Blankenship, I actually really like because, yeah, this team is good. The secondary could use a little help, and that's what they do. And what I think I like about this Reed Blankenship grab is that theoretically, you could move Jalen Petrie from safety back to corner where he played at
Mm-hmm.
Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if that's more comfortable for him, you have a little extra help in that cornerback room. And then if he still needs to, he can flip back to safety, need be. But I just kind of like that move because Jalen Petrie coming out of college, I always thought it was weird that they wanted to push him to safety, and he's done well. He's done really well, not to complain. But he was a corner in college, and so I think that could be an interesting kind of level to that. But yeah, I like these moves. I like the addition of David Montgomery. I've been a David Montgomery guy since his days in Chicago. He was awesome at Iowa State. He's been awesome everywhere he's been in his NFL career. Yeah, I think he could be a big impact. Build the offensive line, build the running back room, and now you've got stuff that can help CJ Stroud get back into his comfort zone and play like he was playing at the beginning of last season and in years prior, and not like the way he finished last season.
I think so. We'll see what he can do. Obviously, keep an eye on them in the NFL draft as well. Let's move to the Indianapolis Colts, a team who, boy, what I still can't forget what a season they had. They started so strong. They look like the best NFL contender out of nowhere. And then everyone on that roster got injured in the second half, and it was an ultimate collapse. Then they go into this offseason, and look, the questions about Daniel Jones. He was coming off severe injury. They re-signed him to a 2-year, $88 million deal that could be worth $100 million. I'm happy for Daniel Jones on that front because, boy, did he get paid. For the Colts, though, feels like a little bit of an overpay if it's me. And then speaking of overpay, at least to me, Alec Pierce, who did have a career year this past year. I will give him that. 4-year, $114 million deal. But because of that, you have to trade away Michael Pittman Jr. in that deal, which kind of hurts the wide receiver room a bit. But, will Daniel Jones be able to recover and go back to his heights from the first half of the year? And besides that, the rest of their moves this offseason were really not that inspiring. I mean, Cam Taylor, Brent, Jonathan Owens for the secondary. Derek Nunati could be a fun one. Jerry Tillery. Nothing too special, which is the Chris Ballard special really in recent years for the Colts.
Yeah, it's nothing too crazy, nothing too good. These are not bad pieces. Jonathan Owens was helpful in Chicago during his short tenure there. They've Derek Nandi, like you said, Jerry Tillery can be an impactful force. But I'm with you. This is kind of like a bland nothing. And here's the big thing for the Colts is like you can't really not have like mid seasons because you traded away so much to get Sauce Gardner. Yep. You don't reap any rewards for having a bad year. I hope Daniel Jones comes back and plays well when he does come back and play. I hope Alex Pierce can kind of play into this contract, but I'm with you. Off the first rip, this is a big overpay and a quite a reach for the Colts.
Yeah, I think so as well. Let's get another uneventful AFC South team off season out of here, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Theirs is a little different. They spent a lot of money last year. They're playing smart with their money, knowing what they have as far as a team that just won the AFC South, a really talented year. The big thing, obviously, is losing Travis Etienne Jr., who's off to New Orleans now in a contract deal. They signed Chris Rodriguez Jr. They have Tootin, who they drafted in the third round. Can those guys replace Travis Etienne in the offense? Besides that, the really big moves besides that was the re-signing of Trayvon Walker to a 4-year, $110 million deal. And not to brag, former Razorback Monteric Brown on a 3-year, $33 million deal. A little bit of nothing, but again, the only question I really have based on the offseason, the rest of the roster I think is moving in the right direction, is can those pieces I talked about for the running back room replace Travis Etienne, who had a career renaissance last year?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they're going to need some help in the running back room. I don't know if Rodriguez is going to be much help, but I'd be interested to see what Bashal Tutin does this season. He could definitely be an impactful force. But look, yeah, kind of the difference, like we talked about Jacksonville. There's not a lot that needed to change with this team, and they didn't change it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to keep a lot of the same guys together. It's really just about figuring out what's going to help in that running back room. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of this team's late round picks being spent on a running back. This is a pretty good running back class.
Yeah, yes, it really is. I mean, there could be multiple good pieces available for them. So I think so. Let's move to the team that, without a doubt, was the worst in this division last year in the Tennessee Titans, even though me and you both wanted them to be a good team last year. But they have made plenty of adjustments and upgrades this offseason. Robert Saleh bringing him in, Brian Daboll as the OC. Obviously, you have the deal. You bring in Wandale Robinson, Daniel Bellinger, bring those guys in to help him out. They acquired Jermaine Johnson from the Jets in that deal. They do trade away Tavondre Sweat. That does hurt, I think, a little bit there. Um, but I think these are some moves, and you bring in veterans like Mitchell Trubisky to kind of help be the backup there, Michael Carter to help in the running back room. There are pieces here and moves that I think are helping build this team in the right direction of which the point where they are, which is the start of a rebuild.
Yeah, I don't think they've done anything crazy that's like, oh, watch out for this team next year. But what I like is the guys they've gotten are talented. John Franklin Myers, I think, is going to be a good add to that defensive
Mm-hmm.
line. Uh, Wandale Robinson and Daniel Bellinger. The thing that I really like about these moves is when you bring in a guy like Brian Dable, he's going to have this big offense that the quarterback's going to have to learn. What's going to make his life easier is if he has a quarterback, or if he brings in a wide receiver and a tight end that already know this offense. That's going to make it a little bit easier to kind of learn when you've got guys that are already comfortable in this offense. They spent time in New York in this offense. And so I think that's always a good benefit uh, for a team as Ziggy's trying to get
Yeah,
in the way.
Ziggy wants to talk. Ziggy wants to talk about the Tennessee Titans.
The
Ziggy's
Tennessee
high on the
Titans.
Tennessee Titans.
But yeah, I like these moves. I don't think it's anything too big, but it's a lot of additions to this team to try and improve it in a lot of different areas. It's not going to make them great overnight, but it's a lot of good moves that are going to help Cam Ward and this young team get better.
Hey, you know what I think helps? I hear running backs from Notre Dame, especially this year, could be pretty good and helpful for a young quarterback.
Yeah.
Just want to consider there, or Miami pass rushers. Your options are plenty, Tennessee. AFC West will move to, and real quickly, the Denver Broncos are who we're going to start with. Most of the offseason, they did nothing. I think they were the last team literally in the offseason to make any move. And you were like, I mean, we get it. Y'all made the AFC Championship. If Bo Nix doesn't get hurt, we're having different discussions, maybe, blah, blah, blah there. But it's like, y'all got to do something. And then they do something. And that's acquiring Jalen Waddle from the Miami Dolphins. Miami getting a first round pick for him, and a third round pick and a fourth round pick. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think Jalen Waddle helps because I'm not going to lie. This wide receiving room at points kind of let Bo Nix down last year, if I'm being honest. But is Waddle and his value for the Broncos going to be worth giving up a first round pick this year and a third and a fourth? That's my only question. Besides that, they really haven't done much else to really get this team up because they believe they're still a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I mean, I think they, again, like you said, have a huge argument to make that they could have played in, if not won, the Super Bowl had Bo Nix not gotten hurt in that game against Buffalo. Um, so yeah, I get wanting to keep a lot of guys around. They've had to do a lot of retaining on some guys. I think Jalen Waddle can help. Like you said, it's not always been the best receiving core from them. Uh, but I mean, we'll just have to see with this team. Jalen Waddle could come out and be, a 1,000-yard receiver and be a huge impact for this team. I have no doubts. But I'm kind of with you. What could they have gotten with those couple of draft picks this year had they held on to them? I think you probably could have gotten a pretty darn good wide receiver this year to go along with some other pieces in that third and fourth round picks. But, time will tell. What Jalen Waddle does is going to be a huge part of it. I don't think they're moving in the wrong direction. I just think they maybe took too big of a swing.
Yeah, I would agree with that there. KC Concepcion, Amar Cooper Jr. were guys that were projected to be around their spot in the draft. Obviously, won't be there now. Again, like I said, time will tell. Let's move to a team that I'm just going to be honest has had a pretty solid but also questionable offseason. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's get out of the way. Obviously, the questions about Mahomes not being 100%. Them trading off pretty much most of their starting secondary and losing most of their secondary, part of it to the Los Angeles Rams. But a positive here, something that I think is going to help Mahomes out, why not go and get the Super Bowl MVP in Kenneth Walker, signing him to a 3-year, $45 million deal? Why not, if Mahomes has his mobility questions, bring in a guy like Justin Fields, who I think could thrive in Andy Reid's offense? Get Travis Kelce back for another year. You sign Kyer Elam, maybe try to do a renaissance with him. There are plenty of question marks here, but some moves on the offensive end I think are going to help, especially Mahomes coming off that ACL injury.
Yeah, in the words of Colin Cowherd, Patrick Mahomes, we're good. Justin Fields is here. So if you're not following my Twitter, you're missing out on gifts like that.
Good.
Because that was instantly what I had to tweet as soon as that trade was made. Trade of the offseason. Patrick Mahomes better be back by week 1. That's all I'm saying. Because when Justin Fields gets in and he tears it up, Andy Reid's not going to want to take him out.
No.
But in all seriousness, I do like the Justin Fields move. Like you said, this could be an offense that works really well for him. And even if he just comes in as a gadget guy every once in a while, once Patrick Mahomes is back, Andy Reid's been known to goof around with goofy formations and throwing guys in different spots. Wouldn't be unlike him to throw Justin Fields out there for a gadget play or have him come out and run the option a little bit and give Patrick Mahomes a break, especially if you want to be careful with that knee after coming back from that injury. But how many teams can boast they have multiple Super Bowl MVPs?
That's a very good point.
Not many. So this is a good addition. Hey, our run game stunk, and Isaiah Pacheco really kind of dropped the ball after looking really good to start his career. And Kareem Hunt's kind of old and doesn't really run for, hundreds of yards anymore. What do? Let's go out and get the best running back in the last 4 months of the NFL season.
Yeah.
I love that move. I like getting a guy like Alohi Gilman. He went to Notre Dame, so that's why I'm a big Alohi Gilman stan. But he was great in that Baltimore defense. I'm excited to see what Kansas City can do. They've certainly reloaded. They've cut costs and still been able to reload with the talented roster and garner some extra draft assets because they traded off some of those guys in the secondary.
Yeah, they did. And also the big thing, they bring Travis Kelce back for another year. Something I think that's just going to make Mahomes happy. And plus, I think we all knew Travis Kelce didn't want to end his career the way last year ended there, no doubt.
Yeah.
Let's move to a team that has been busy this offseason as they prepare and await the arrival of their king from the Indiana Hoosiers, Fernando Mendoza. And that's the Vegas Raiders, who have, we thought, man, they got a lot of draft picks for Max Crosby. Man, that's going to really help. No, they're actually right now keeping a hold on Max Crosby. But besides that, I've loved the moves they made this offseason. Getting Tyler Lindenbaum, spending a lot of money on him for that offensive line. You bring in on the defense, Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, Malcolm Kuntz re-signed. Taron Johnson, they acquire him from the Bills. Eric Stokes, they bring him in. And then one that I think people, they kind of laugh at, but I think he's the perfect mentor for Fernando Mendoza, and that's bringing in Kirk Cousins. I'm not saying the Raiders are going to be a great team in year 1 of the Clint Kubiak era, but they are a lot better than what they were at the end of this year.
I love these moves. Like you said, look, Kirk Cousins, good mentor. I think he can be a good figure in Las Vegas. But Linderbaum, let's get some extra protection. Another nice younger guy to go with guys like Jackson Powers on the line.
Yeah.
Um, you've got some great offensive line pieces, but what I really love is they signed Clay Walker, they signed Nakobe Dean, both great linebackers. These guys ran a tight ship at Georgia together.
Yes, they
Have you
did.
seen? Do you remember these two
Yes.
dudes pushing each other out into coverages and whatnot? These two dudes are going to play insane football together in Vegas. I love those moves. Get Kawhi Pay out there. Hasn't been exactly the guy they thought he was going to be in Indianapolis, but now he gets a chance to prove himself. Also, a name you didn't mention, Von Miller headed to
Yep.
Vegas to play alongside Max Crosby. And I personally love that move. Von Miller and Max Crosby. And then you've got to try and throw over Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean. Teron Johnson's going to be out there in coverage. You're right. Maybe this isn't going to be the best team ever, but they are much, much better than they were last season. They've got a lot to look forward to.
Yeah. I'm very much look forward to seeing what they do. Obviously, include bringing in a guy like Fernando Mendoza, what he can learn, and I'm very intrigued by. And then last team in the AFC West and last team we're going to go over in the AFC, that's the Los Angeles Chargers here, which the obvious thing. You lose Jesse Minter to the Ravens, a dent in the coaching staff. As far as the backfield, there were questions. The running back room was completely shot last year. I mean, the running back room was injured as far as all get out. They bring in Keaton Mitchell. They bring in Alec Ingold from the Miami Dolphins for Mike McDaniel, the new OC there. Obviously, Trevor Penning re-signed. They bring in Cole Strange. They bring in Tyler Biotze, the Chargers, for their new center position when they couldn't get some other pieces. They re-signed Khalil Mack. They bring Dalvin Tomlinson. Denzel Perriman re-signed. Re-signed Tony Jefferson. I mean, this is a good football team. The key thing is protecting Justin Herbert. And even though it may not seem like it, I think they have made the moves in the Mike McDaniel offense to help Justin Herbert be protected better this year.
Yeah, I love that Alex Ingold get. People forget how good he was in those first couple McDaniels years before he took that deal with Vegas. So getting him into this offense, as well as, like you said, building up this offensive line. And I just love how basically, if you've ever played for one Harbaugh, you're just willing to go
Yeah.
play for the other one. And yeah, it was just like, hey, Jesse Minter, you're going to go to the Ravens, but you're going to lose a bunch of guys that the Ravens had because we're going to go play for the old guy's brother. And that's what happened here. Kohler, Mitchell. It's just a big move. But again, I'm with you. I like these moves, and I like Keaton Mitchell getting another opportunity to be a starting running back. Because before he obliterated his leg a couple years ago, he was the Ravens guy, and then they
Mhm.
brought in Derrick Henry. Like he could legitimately be that kind of force again. So I'm excited to see what he could do because he's really that kind of dual threat, the runner and the receiver at the running back position could be really exciting. You know, would love to see what they could do with him, kind of the way he used A-Chain in Miami, the way he could use Keaton Mitchell here.
Yeah, and again, some of the pieces in the running game, Najee Harris was there, obviously. Oronde Gadsden, what he showed last year in some bits and pieces. Pieces are there for the Chargers. But let's move over to the NFC and let's start with everyone's favorite team in the NFC East, right? That's the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. Unfortunately, no. We're gonna get the Cowboys out of the way here. Look, it can't be worse off season than what Jerry Jones put them through last year, right? It can't be worse. They at least franchise tag George Pickens. They
Yeah,
they acquired Rashawn Gary in a trade to help with their edge rusher. Man, if only they had another edge rusher to help out there. Just don't know. They did sign Kobe Durant as a free agent. They brought in Jalen Thompson for the secondary, and they re-signed Brandon Aubrey. I mean, look, the questions are just about this defense. The offense with Dak, we saw when it's at its best, was a great offense. You bring in Rashawn Gary, maybe that helps. Don't know about the secondary, though. This draft is going to be critical for the defense for the Cowboys, I think.
yeah. I just don't know that I have any confidence in Jerry Jones to build a secondary
That's
in
very fair.
Dallas. He hasn't done it in a decade,
Yeah.
it feels like. So you're just kind of wondering. But that's my favorite bit we've got going on the show right now is if only Dallas had another superstar edge rusher. What would this team be like
I mean,
if
it
they
could
had
be
had a Penn
incredible.
State alum who's maybe one of the best defensive edges in all of football? Where would they be at? It's a question we'll never have the answer to. But yeah, it's just a mess what's going on there. I think Rashawn Gary's a good get.
Yeah.
He's kind of phased out in Green Bay, but still a solid rusher. There's just a lot of guys, Lucas Van Ness, obviously Micah Parsons, who we've been alluding to this whole time. Green Bay don't need him. And so now he's over in Dallas, has a chance to be impactful. But look, just like when DeMarcus Lawrence was here a couple years ago, who went and got himself a Super Bowl ring, it's not the defensive line. They have
Mm-mm.
Kenny Clark. It's not the defensive line. It's this secondary. This secondary sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're scoring 40 points a game and you can't make the playoffs, you got a problem that needs to be
Mm-hmm.
fixed. And I just don't know that they've done enough to get it. Kobe Durant's a guy I like. I like Jalen Thompson. I don't think that's enough to fix all the
No,
holes in this secondary.
absolutely, absolutely not. Like I said, this draft is critical. Like, if they pick anything other than secondary in the first round, I will genuinely be shell shocked
Yeah.
because it's that's what needs to be done. But let's move to a team that I think it's safe to say has a bit of a brighter future with their new hire, John Harbaugh. That's the New York Giants here, who have been busy in the start of the Harbaugh era. I mean, let's go over some of the names. They signed Calvin Austin, signed Darnell Mooney, signed Isaiah Likely, re-signed Evan Neal, bring in Tremaine Edmonds at linebacker, Micah McFadden, Greg Newsome II. These are some moves that are going to help the Giants. Obviously, the big questions are obviously Jackson Darr, this offense losing Wandale Robinson. There are questions here, but kind of similar. They are in a much better position, I think, than they were at the end of this past year. These are some moves that could help, and not to mention having a top 5 pick and maybe having a chance at a coveted Ohio State wide receiver. I hear those guys do pretty well in the NFL.
Yeah, I think they've got a pretty good track record going for them over the last 5 years or so. But what I really love is John Harbaugh says, well, let me get all the best hits of what I did in Baltimore. Pat Ricard, Isaiah Likely. Let's get those guys in here. Let's bring in super exciting speedsters at wide receiver and Calvin Austin and Darnell Mooney. Then let's solidify the back end of this defense because the defensive line wasn't the problem last year.
No.
Let's get Tremaine Edmonds. Let's get guys like Elijah Campbell, Greg Newsome. Let's fix these different areas. He gives himself a great start here in his time in New York, where it's just like this team could really be good. Isaiah Likely now getting an opportunity to be the starter at tight end, I think is going to be a good piece for him. Jackson Dart's got a lot of new toys and a lot of help on the defense side of the football. There's a lot of growing that this team could do, and so I like it. I know some people are mocking this team to take Jeremiah Love. Look, I get it. Maybe Cam Scatabo, however you feel about him, he may not even be ready to go right out of the gate.
He will be. He will be. He's the greatest running back of all time. What are you talking about, Austin?
If you're going to draft another running back, draft one later in this draft. Do not burn a top 5 pick. I love Jeremiah Love. You don't need Jeremiah Love. No. Scatterboo is plenty. I think they should go a lot of different directions with that top pick. I'd like to see them maybe try and attack the offensive line again. I know they haven't. It hasn't really stuck, but there's some good offensive line pieces. I know Caden Proctor, a guy that I don't think is getting enough love.
Agree.
He's mocked at the end of a lot of first rounds right now. I'd take him at 5.
Mm-hmm.
He's that good, in my opinion, and he's a specimen to me. So I'm not saying they have to go that offensive line in the first round, but I'd really hate if Jeremiah Love were to slip past 4 for them to make that kind of move. He's a great impact player. And he's going to help whoever. I just don't think that's where their biggest need is right now.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Again, I've just seen a lot about Carnell Tate, which again, if you think about Neighbors coming off the injury as well, maybe that could help. We'll see what John Harbaugh and the Giants look to do for the first year of his time there. Let's move to the team that's run this division for a bit, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. And boy, oh boy, Austin, this is an offseason where there are a lot of questions surrounding the future of this Eagles team as far as the offense, what it could be. But let's talk about they signed Hollywood Brown, Elijah Moore's who they bring in. They re-signed Dallas Goedert, signed Jordan Davis to an extension. They get Tariq Woolen from Seattle in a move. But you think about it, obviously, coaching staff is going to be a big thing here. They lost one of their long-term pieces as an offensive line coach this offseason, a guy who's considered by many to be one of the best offensive line coaches in all football. So in a year where the offense struggled, is this the kind of offseason to build confidence toward the offense again?
I mean, look, there's been a lot coming out. There's a lot of stuff coming out about Jalen Hurts.
Uh-huh.
Boo that. People literally forget what this guy did a year ago. Um, just a statistic for you. Of any quarterback to win a Finals MVP or Super Bowl MVP in the same season, he's got the highest completion percentage of any quarterback to win a Super Bowl and then win Super Bowl MVP ever.
Not bad.
That season he's completed 69% of his passes, most of Finals MVP or Super Bowl MVPs ever completed. Highest completion percentage of a Super Bowl MVP ever. Period. Just a little stat for the Jalen Hurts haters. It wasn't his fault what happened last year. I'm going to be honest. The whole offense stunk. We should be having questions about Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown and everybody else. I think that's a terrible way to get the team motivated. But I think this team has a lot of room to grow. They have a different play caller. Let's see what happens. Getting Tariq Woolen is going to help in the secondary where they let a lot of vets go this past year. Adding Hollywood Brown is maybe a guy you can finally get going in the slot. A nice speedster with some Super Bowl and playoff experience. I don't think they've done anything crazy. I think keeping Dallas Goedert around, which was a big question mark coming into this offseason, a super big help. So I don't know. I know it's kind of down and out right now in Philly, but I still believe.
Yeah. Again, I'm not gonna. If you have Saquon Barkley and the offensive line is able to be there, it'll give you a chance still. But again, it's a big season where I think if things go as this past year did, there could be some changes coming to Philly. Let's dive into the last team in the NFC East, Washington Commanders. Look, this is an offseason where, year one of the Dan Quinn era went awesome. Last year was a disaster. So they had to make some moves. Redid this entire running back room. Jerome Ford, Rashad White, Jeremy McNichols. Wide receivers, they bring in Van Jefferson. Re-sign Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks getting some major NFL playing time. You love to see it. Bring in Okonkwo at tight end. Laramie Tunsil's back. Nick Allegretti back on the offensive line as well. Then you think of the defense, signing Odafe Owe to a $100 million deal. Caleb Vaughn Chason coming with them as well. Leo Chenal from the Chiefs comes over. Akilo Witherspoon, Nick Cross, et cetera there. I like the moves for the defense, especially because I think the defense was the thing that was kind of holding this team back. So we'll see if they can kind of turn around what was, just a rough year last year in Washington.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're making the right moves to kind of bring this team back, and on the defensive end, like you said, that's an important spot for them to kind of fix and upgrade. But I think my favorite move is bringing back Laramie Tunsil. I know that Jalen Daniels spent a lot of time injured last year, but I think it is going to help to have a solid force like Laramie Tunsil, and keeping him around is going to be incredible. But yeah, I like some of the moves they've made on the defensive side of the football. It's just a matter of really what kind of killed this team last year was a lot of guys got hurt at the wrong times. And so if they can stay healthy, they're going to be a much better team next year. It's really that simple to me.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Let's dive into a division that Austin Hill knows better than anyone. That's the NFC North. Now, which team should we start with in the NFC North? Could be,
Hmm.
I guess we'll start with the Green. I'm kidding. We're going to start with the Chicago Bears here. Um, Very proactive offseason for the Bears. Some of the I won't go into all of them. I'll leave that to you. But the ones noticeable, obviously, Garrett Bradbury, bringing him in, I think is going to help a lot. Kobe Bryant being signed as well. You signed Devin Bush coming over, former Steeler there. But obviously you trade away DJ Moore, which was one of the bigger things. But they have the depth, I think, in the wide receiver room where it doesn't hurt them. To me, this is a good offseason for the Bears coming off that phenomenal, awesome season to watch. And I'm sure I would love to hear your thoughts on it, Austin. What are your thoughts on the Bears offseason?
Yeah, so it kind of came in waves. You have the DJ Moore trade, and it's like, I kind of get it. The way last season ended stunk, but he did have some big, huge flashes. But you had Rome really coming to his own as the wide receiver one. And I think the thing that really killed DJ Moore was that Luther Burden really came into his own as well. And so with having two young wide receivers and DJ Moore kind of having the least amount of production in his career because the rest of the receiving core was so good, and Colston Loveland was awesome. Some decisions had to be made. And to get that kind of value out of DJ Moore, get a second round pick, that's going to help us in this year's draft to keep fleshing out this roster. It just kind of was a more make sense move. But then, oof, we had a wave. Tremaine Edmonds is released, and it made sense trying to
Hmm.
save some money. Um, but man, I love Tremaine Edmonds. And then you've got everybody flying off left and right. All our DBs are going somewhere
Yeah.
else. And I was just like, what are we going to do? But to bring in Kobe Bryant off a Super Bowl winning team, kind of a combo DB, listed as a safety, but plays a lot of corner as well. So he can fly around, whether he's going to be replacing Byard or Brisker, or he's going to come down and play corner. Cam Lewis, another guy that's kind of another underrated DB. Like you said, Devin Bush, what I'm really excited about. Kind of seemed like he kind of fell off near the end of his Steelers tenure, but he really rose
Yep.
back up this
Yep.
season in Cleveland. And so 3 years was a commitment I'm willing to make. The move that I really, really liked, Jedrick Willis, uh,
Hmm.
bringing him in on a 1 year deal. We're kind of hurting on the offensive line at just one spot. You've got Darnell Wright that's solid. You've got the guards in Jonah Jackson and Joe Tooney. Of course, the name is evading me at guards. And then at center, you had Drew Dahlman just decide he's done playing football, which
Yep.
also stunk.
Yep.
But at the same time, I get it. You do what's good for you. But then we make the move for Garrett Bradbury, who was the best center in football last season. And so you're like, okay, if we could figure out the left tackle position, we'd have the best offensive line in football. And so bringing back Braxton Jones, who has been so-so with injuries and whatnot, but now bringing in Jedrick Willis, who's going to have a chance to compete for that spot. I like where this team's headed. I still would like to see some more help at safety and at corner because we're still missing a lot of output from Deshaun Wright and losing both starting safeties. Kind of a gut punch. Kobe Bryant and Cam Lewis can replace so much, but we at least need to fill one more safety spot. It's where I'd like to see a guy like Downs or Theinman, but I'm happy with this offseason. It felt like at first it was going to stink, all the guys we were losing, but the guys we brought in, they're not all the biggest, flashiest names, but they're guys that are going to help the Chicago Bears get better. They're guys that are a good part of this team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And again, I look forward to seeing what the Bears can do in the draft to go along with it. And yeah, I will agree. That Drew Dahlman retirement did kind of come out of nowhere. That was very surprising to me
He's
too.
like 27 years old. That's
Yeah,
like super early. I'm not expecting that.
but let's dive into a team that's also going to look to compete in that NFC North. Detroit Lions, obviously, a move we talked about earlier. David Montgomery, now a Houston Texan. So they're going to bring in Isaiah Pacheco to become the tag team partner with Jameer Gibbs now. Cade Mays comes in at center to provide an answer, obviously, after the whole Frank Ragnow drama from this past season. The defense got some secondary help with Roger McCreary at corner and Christian Eason at safety. And look, I could go on and on about some of this, and Dan Campbell's Dan Campbell. They have to hope they can avoid injuries. Injuries have derailed this team the last two seasons.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think injuries is all it comes down to. They've got a good team. They've made good adjustments on the offensive line to kind of help fix some of those holes. But I'm with you. Can this team stay healthy? I personally wish this team would have saved some money and not signed Isaiah Pacheco.
Nah.
I'm not here to slander Pacheco. He did have a down year, which doesn't really help his case here.
Yeah.
But it's not about his performance at all. It's about, to me, Jahmyr Gibbs really stepped up and showed why he should be on the field for every single down.
Yeah.
And I get you do want to have like a good, decent secondary running back. But if you're willing to cut ties with the kind of that dynamic duo at running back, I think you should be willing to give Jahmyr Gibbs more reps. He's
I
a
agree.
lethal receiver. He's a solid running back. He does everything so well. That's the guy I'd really like to see get more reps. I wish they maybe would have spent that money somewhere else.
Yeah, I could see an argument for that. Very intrigued to see what they do. To me, I would look in the NFL draft to them maybe going edge, getting someone to go on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. But we'll dive more into that obviously when we do our NFL mock draft coming out here in just a week or two. Let's dive to the Green Bay Packers next. A favorite of yours,
Yes.
obviously. Talking about the Packers, they lost a lot of key defensive players. Colby Wooden, Rashawn Gary, Quay Walker, and others are no longer in Green Bay. They bring in quarterback Benjamin St-Juste. That will boost the secondary. They bring in Javon Hargrave on a 2-year deal. He is 33, and I mean, besides that, they acquired Zaire Franklin in a deal with the Colts. Sky Moore, Sean Ryan re-signed. Not a lot of moves off a team that kind of similar to Detroit the last 2 years. Down the stretch, injuries have cost them. And
Yeah.
so this is going to be an interesting team to watch, especially with all the drama about Matt LaFleur. Rumors he might not be back, then he ends up coming back. Kind of feels like there's some pressure on this next year.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think for this team, this is one of the only teams I'm kind of curious. What are they going to do at backup quarterback? And I
Mm-hmm.
only say that because Jordan Love has missed a big time in both of the last
Mm-hmm.
two seasons. And Malik Willis was there to be the band-aid, to patch the wound, and keep this team on the right track. Like I said, I'm pretty sure he went undefeated in starts while Jordan Love was out over the last two seasons. So what are they going to do there? Of course, you want to count on Jordan Love being there, but man, it's been nice to fall back on Malik Willis. So how do they kind of fix that? I know it doesn't sound like a legitimate complaint. Nobody's really thinking about backup quarterbacks, but I think for this team, it might be important to at least consider with the last 2 years track record. But also, I unfortunately, having seen it firsthand, I'm trusting this team to be able to fill these holes in the draft. Guys like Lucas Van Ness, guys, even Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark. They've drafted these guys and bred these guys to be good defensive pieces for them. So as much as they've lost, and they've done a little bit to help on defense, they're going to do way more in the draft. They always kind of tend to draft defensively. I just wonder, the only question I really have for this team besides that backup quarterback is what are they going to do in the wide receiver room? With Dobbs out,
Mm-hmm.
Wicks and Watson missed some time last year. Again, kind of where are they going to fill in? They've had some great guys who rose to the occasion when some big key pieces were out, and now those guys have parted ways in the offseason and capitalized on that. What are they going to do to replace those guys? The guys that really bailed them out down the stretch when they did get injured. You never want to hope for it, but they've needed for the last few years. You never want to look at it. But I'm just curious kind of where they're going to fill some of these holes that have been kind of so important for them over the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, I'll go ahead and say this. I think everyone can agree. No one's worried about backup quarterback until the backup quarterback steps on the field. Then you start to worry about the backup quarterback. Um,
Yeah.
and speaking of a team with a lot of quarterbacks, let's move to the Minnesota Vikings. Um, Obviously, the questions entering the offseason were about J.J. McCarthy. What's the future there? Blah, blah, blah. They signed Kyler Murray to a cheap 1-year deal, which to me is a smart move. And they re-signed Carson Wentz. To me, that question there is what exactly is going to happen with the QB room this year. Besides that, they re-signed Aaron Jones. They signed James Pierre. Really, that's it. Not a lot of big moves. Their big move was, I think, getting this quarterback room. So I guess my question to you, because I think the rest of the options around the offense will be pretty solid. mean, what do you make of this QB room of Kyler Murray, J.J. McCarthy?
Um, I'm going to go ahead and come out and say it. I think it would be kind of hypocritical of this team and Kevin O'Connell to just throw JJ McCarthy by the wayside after one bad year with the way, they talk about giving up on guys. But at the same time, Kyler Murray, I think, is a great NFL quarterback. I think he's had, some ups and downs, but to me, it's more ups than downs. You look at the injury and the way he came back and the way he bounced back. Clearly, he was capable enough to buy that faith of another couple seasons in Arizona. Now it's time for a rebuild, and that's really the only reason he's not in Arizona anymore. He was high value for a lot of these teams that needed quarterback, and even more high value because you weren't going to have to pay him anything to come play there. You just had to make your best case. I like getting this guy. I think we saw when he had DeAndre Hopkins what he can do when he has elite receivers. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are going to help out big time. This is a good team and a good roster. I think if Kyler Murray comes out and wins the job, he wins the job. And then we see what happens with J.J. McCarthy after this season. It's a one-year deal for Kyler Murray. I don't think you should be in any rush to try and figure out what's going on with J.J. McCarthy.
I would agree, especially there's another year on JJ's contract. You have the 5th-year option.
Yeah.
When in doubt, if Kyler beats him out for the job, it could be a year where JJ kind of sits back and learns. I don't think it could be the worst thing in the world. Let's move to the NFC South now and to the home of the Atlanta Falcons. A full new regime. The Matt Ryan era gets underway there. And you know what they said? One lefty QB's not enough. We need another one. They go out and sign Tua on a short one-year deal, obviously. Questions of Tua and Michael Penix Jr., if there is a QB controversy, who that is. They made the move that's just going to infuriate everybody in fantasy football time, signing Brian Robinson to go along with Bijan Robinson. No one's going to make that mistake in fantasy football this year.
One-year leagues are in shambles. The teams that draft every year are in shambles because, that is how many people are going to make that mistake. Too many people.
They're going to be sitting there going, man, Bijan's available in the 5th round? Oh, my gosh, I got to go get – oh. Yeah. They signed Jahan Dotson. Austin Hooper is back in Atlanta. They franchise tag Kyle Pitts. Acquired Sidney Brown, the safety from the Eagles. There really wasn't a lot of moves there for Atlanta. Obviously, the big thing was with Tua. I'm curious, what are your thoughts exactly with that Atlanta? Because I'm going to be honest with you, it's a good thing they're in the NFC South. Otherwise, I'd have some questions about this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've kind of put themselves at a decent baseline with some of these guys. My issue is a lot of these guys, they've signed on one-year deals, though, so it's like not really even a good baseline. That's kind of where I'm up in the air because it's a one-year deal for these guys who could maybe, if it was a 2 or 3-year deal, you're establishing a good kind of, again, baseline for the next couple of years. But instead, it's a one-year deal, and it's like, well, those guys can just be off next year. Like, you've basically made no progress.
Yep.
But I will say, I actually love the Tua move because 2 left-handed quarterbacks with injury issues, that means whoever wins the starting job, you've got another one ready to go. But on a serious note, seriously, if one of these guys has to miss times or you need to make a switch in the middle of the season, you don't have to make the big grand change of the way plays need to go for left-handed versus right-handed quarterback. There are certain things that have to change with that. And look, I know that, and I don't even know all the intricacies of football and playmaking and all that goes into it. But I know enough to know that if a guy throws with this hand or this hand, it changes a lot about the way the play is designed. And that's a lot of stuff that has to be relearned when you change quarterback. You have to make a switch at quarterback. And now with Tua being there, that there's so much less strain on guys. This should be a much smoother transition. Should somebody get hurt or should somebody need to be benched? Or even if it's a case of Michael Penix isn't quite ready to go for the start of the season and Tua just takes over till he gets back. That's going to be so much less work for everybody. I think it was a really smart move. And I think Matt Ryan knew exactly that when he made this move.
Yeah, if there's anyone I trust in that MVP for your franchise, we'll see what that leads to in the Kevin Stefanski era. Next team up is the Carolina Panthers, which we can look at the negative first of the offseason, which is losing Rico Dowdle. Signed A.J. Dillon, running back position. On the offensive, and they signed John Mechie, pairing him back up with Bryce Young, something you like to see. But Austin, where this team had a great offseason was on the defensive side of the ball. Number one, getting Jalen Phillips on a $120 million deal. And then my personal favorite move of the offseason, he's been one of my favorite linebackers in all of football, getting Devin Lloyd from the Jaguars on a 3-year, $45 million deal. Um, to me, this is great for that defense that could use some help later on down the stretch. We saw at points this past year. And between this and a new offensive coordinator that hopefully will put Bryce Young in better situations, shotgun wise, I mean, is it right to be optimistic about this Carolina Panthers team even more than you were at the end of last year?
I think so because I think even though you're losing Rico Dowdle, I still have confidence in the offense. Bryce Young really looked like he found it last season. I really feel like that. It looked like he found his groove and he was more comfortable than he's ever been in the NFL. And so now to go out and get guys like Jalen Walker and Devin Lloyd, like you said, these are going to be two huge ads that really beef up this defense and take, again, a little bit of that pressure off of Bryce Young.
I could not agree more. That's one to keep an eye on. Another young quarterback to keep an eye on is Tyler Shook and the New Orleans Saints and what they were going to do this offseason. They let go of a lot of veteran pieces, Austin. And for the first time, it felt like the Saints had some money to use in free agency. I mean, I feel like that's the first time I'll say those words, and
Yeah.
it's not sarcasm. But the big move, obviously, is signing Travis Etienne. Look, there's the questions about the future of Alvin Kamara there. And Etienne's coming off a great season in Jacksonville, back home in Louisiana, where he feels more comfortable. And I guess I'm apologizing because I am pronouncing Travis Etienne's name wrong. I forgot how he said it in his press conference for how it's
Achan. Achan. I think it's
Achan.
Achan.
That's what it is. Thank you. I couldn't think. So yeah, let me try it again. Travis Achan. Yeah, that's going to take me a while to get used to. But besides that, not too many big moves. They signed Caden Ellis in free agency. To me, this is a big thing because Shook may have had a great year, but let's remember, he's an older quarterback. He's going to be 27 in his second year. And you lose the leadership of Mario Davis on the defense. There's some good, and then there's also some bad there, I think, for the Saints with this offseason.
Yeah, I think you let a lot of pieces go. You have money to spend, but it's going to be about finding a new direction and a new leader. You lose those voices. You talk about Mario Davis. How about another guy? Cam Jordan is a guy that's going to be, maybe he comes back on a small deal, but he's a guy that right now is not on the roster. And so it'll be very interesting to see what happens with this team. You're right. But I think a small offseason is good. For the first offseason you've had money in a while, maybe just take it easy and save that money for a rainy day.
Yeah, so that way you're not in the cap constraint that you were what's felt like the past decade.
It's been a decade. It really has been.
Can you imagine the tax guy for the Saints? He's like, oh my,
Yeah, their accountant gets a much deserved vacation this offseason.
He very much does. Last team we're going to talk about in NFC South, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not going to lie. I am worried for what the future holds here. Mike Evans, Jamel Dean, Rashad White, all leave to different teams. Levante David retires. There's already been questions about Todd Bowles. And I'm not going to lie, I wonder if they'll have a tough time replacing all that talent. They did sign Kenneth Gainwell, who had a great year last year. Alex Anzalone comes in. Maybe he can help, but Miles Killebrew's not bad. But I mean, they lost a lot that I don't think they were expecting to lose this offseason.
Yeah, I think this team took a lot of hits, and I don't know that they've done enough to recover. I like what Baker's capable of. He's talented, but I think this ship's sinking. It won't be his fault. I'm not going to put the blame on Baker, but I think the Buccaneers are gearing towards tearing it down.
Yeah, I agree, and especially the future of Todd Bowles. People thought he should have been fired last year. If this roster doesn't get any better with what they do in the draft, it might be a proven point this year. Last division here, the NFC West. Let's start with the one who was easily in the most trouble. That's the Arizona Cardinals for first-year coach Mike LaFleur. they're going to need a lot of hope and luck to succeed this next year. Jacoby Brissett may be the starter. They signed Gardner Minshew in free agency. They released Kyler, obviously, brought in Tyler Algier. Um, Besides that, I mean, really not too big of signings really anywhere else on what feels like for the millionth time we're talking about a Cardinals rebuild.
Yeah, the one thing I'm gonna give him credit for, go out and get a guy like Tyler Algier was really good the season before they drafted Bijan Robinson, and then he's been a solid like kind of second option in that run game. So to get this guy who's gonna maybe bridge the gap and maybe even take over for James Conner after the injury he sustained last year is gonna be helpful. And Kendrick Bourne could maybe add some depth. Um, but yeah, there's just not really a lot to look forward to with this team right now. They didn't do anything too crazy, and they're probably not really, especially after letting Kyler go, you're not really in the position where they're probably going to be that great of a team next year.
No, they're not. But let's talk about a team that's making moves once again to be a great team. That's the Los Angeles Rams, who, Austin, you know what the Rams said? Hey, that all in stuff worked for us before, and we got picks to play with. Let's do it again. They acquired Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs, giving up a first, fifth, and sixth round pick, as well as signing him to a $124 million extension. They signed Jalen Watson. They re-signed Cameron Curl. And that was truly one of my questions for the Rams entering this offseason was, what can they do to fix this secondary? And by goodness, they did that. The only questions, obviously, are the rumors about Devontae Adams. Are they going to look to move him? But the big thing, let's remember, they still have the 13th pick in this year's draft from the Falcons. So they still can add some premier talent at the top to go along with the moves they made to a secondary and a team that is very ready still to compete for Super Bowl next year.
Yeah, I like what they've done. I like what the moves that they've made. McDuffie's going to be a good addition. Wherever they go at 13 is going to be a good help. My big question is the wide receiver room. Obviously, Puka's had himself an off season that we won't dive into here, but
Smart plan.
he's going to be questionable probably for the start of this season. And then, like you said, with Devontae Adams, what do they do? I almost feel like now you're kind of caught in a tough position. At least he had a good season last year.
Yeah.
So that's something to build off of. But I kind of feel like you're in the position now where, yeah, I get it. Maybe the money's tight or whatever, but you can't really trade him, especially with questions about Puka. But the receiving room is going to be my big question because Stafford's great. But if his top two weapons are down and you've got no plan to replace them, that's going to hurt.
Yeah, and we talked about some good receiver options that'll be available in the draft. I think those will be helpful that they'll look at there. Next up is the San Francisco 49ers, who I think that had a pretty solid and underrated offseason. They make the splash of getting Mike Evans and add him to the offense, which I think is underrated. It's going to be really weird to see him in not a Tampa Bay Buccaneer uniform. I'm not going to lie.
Agreed.
It's going to take some time. But they also bring Dre Greenlaw back to the team, which I'm sure makes Fred Warner super excited. Nate Hobbs, they add him as well as some other pieces as well. They acquire Osa Odighizuwa in that deal with the Cowboys on the defensive line. There's some good moves here for a team that, despite all the injuries, was one game away from being a 1 seed. I mean, I'm feeling pretty optimistic if I'm the San Francisco 49ers with this offseason.
Yeah, they're in a good place. And now they give Brock Purdy a legitimate wide receiver one. Brandon Ayuk's been off doing side quests.
Ricky Pearsall, yeah.
Ricky Pearsall. I'm mixing him up with Alec Pierce. It's been a long episode. Ricky Pearsall, I think is a talented wide receiver, and I think he's a super awesome option. I don't think he's a wide receiver one, at least not right now in his NFL career. And so now having some wide receivers to kind of actually play with, and not having to start Jawan Jennings, though Jawan Jennings had a great finish to last season. I think that's going to be super helpful for this team. And taking a lot of pressure off. And I like adding Nate Hobbs. I know he's kind of had a little bit of a troubled NFL career, but when he's on the field, he's a solid addition to any secondary.
Agreed. And who better to end off this episode with, Austin, than the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, who I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty disappointed with the offseason they've had. They had a lot of money to play with, and they chose to let obviously Kenneth Walker go, let Kobe Bryant walk, let Tariq Woolen walk. And with Zach Charbonnet coming off the ACL injury, is this really the best you can do? They signed Emmanuel Wilson. They gave Jackson Smith and Jigba a lot of money, which I think can help. They re-signed Josh Jobe. Rashid Shaheed was re-signed, Jake Bobo. It feels like for a team that just won the Super Bowl, they really were not that aggressive this offseason and cost themselves some pretty talented pieces.
Yeah, they did. And look, unfortunately, I think it's kind of a little bit of mismanagement. We saw the GM and kind of that weird off the cuff joke he made while maybe having a little too many at the Super Bowl parade about Kenneth Walker. Hey, yeah, way to kill your chances of getting the Super Bowl MVP in front of the entire city of Seattle. I mean, from that moment, I was like, I'm going to be so surprised if he signs back with Seattle. It was just kind of like, I know he's trying to joke. Maybe not when a guy who seriously earned a big pay raise is asking for a big pay raise, maybe making a joke about it in front of the entire city of Seattle, not the way to go about working relationship with that player. And now it's on to the Kansas City Chiefs, who we have to worry about again. So thanks a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. It's kind of a dud. Yeah, Shaheed was good. Way to bring him back. Job is going to be helpful. Get somebody back in that secondary. Besides obviously Devon Witherspoon, who's still there. But yeah, it just kind of feels like they had a chance to do stuff, especially with all the names we've talked about today and changing places, and they just didn't do anything.
Yeah, it's disappointing. But I'll tell you what's not disappointing is what we have in store for the future weeks with this NFL. Obviously, like I said, NFL draft 16 days away. Don't know when we'll do that mock draft episode, but we will get it to you. We'll react to the NFL draft. And then obviously things that fall. NBA playoffs are going on. MLB season is just getting underway. Things are really picking up, especially with March Madness coming to an end. But that is going to do it for this episode of the Bold Take Podcast. Again, keep an eye out for these future episodes. You are not going to want to miss them. But that's Austin Hill. I'm Austin Waiter, and we want to thank you for listening.